So welcome into another episode of Ravens Reports, man. Hope you guys are doing well. We got a ton of updates for you guys, including Todd Monken with a massive contract extension to lock up one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL for years to come. Plus, we got a motivated statement from Derrick Henry, an update on cornerback Nate Wiggins, some key players that signed contracts to come back with the Baltimore Ravens, and a look at the Ravens salary cap space heading into free agency in just a few weeks. We got all that and more, man. So let's go ahead and dive into the content. At number one, let's talk about this contract extension between Todd Monken and the Baltimore Ravens. As you guys know, there was so much speculation and hype that, Todd Monken was going to go be a head coach somewhere else. And we're like, no, not again, man. They come and snag one of our best guys. We saw it happen with Mike Macdonald after 2 years of success with the Baltimore Ravens, had one of the best defenses. Seattle Seahawks hired him as their head coach. And then we saw it 2 years of success with Todd Monken, the best offense in football in many categories. And then all of a sudden, he's starting to get interviews with the Jaguars, the Bears, and other teams. And we're thinking, not again, because he's brought so much success to Lamar Jackson with the second year of the offense, how comfortable Lamar was, how he was able to make checks at the line of scrimmage, check in and out of plays, and change, blitz protections, and plus like the versatility of the offense. They could throw it with the best of them. They could run it at the best rate in the league. They had so many things going for them. We're thinking, no, not again. But hey, he's officially coming back, signed a multi-year contract extension with the Baltimore Ravens. Check this out, all right, guys? So the Ravens had the third overall scoring offense in 2024, the number one rushing offense, the seventh overall passing. Talk about balance. Whenever you have the first rushing offense and the seventh, if you're top 10 in both passing and rushing, you're a balanced offense. Third highest in yards per play in NFL history. Like, not just this season, but we're talking about over, half a century. We're talking about, in NFL history, the Ravens had the third highest yards per play. It's absurd. And then even in the playoffs, because what really matters is what happens in the playoffs. The offense was moving the ball up and down the field in both the Bills game and the Steelers game. In fact, the Ravens had the second overall offense in the 2024 postseason when it comes to yards per game, just behind the Detroit Lions. As we know, the game plan was actually pretty solid against the Bills. Lamar Jackson was shredding the Bills through the air, averaged 10.7 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns. Henry got going in the second half. The problem was 3 turnovers, the drop 2-point conversion, which had nothing to do with Todd Monken's game plan. But at number 2, I know a guy that's coming back to Todd Monken's offense that Todd Monken will appreciate, and that's Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry posts on Instagram, "Run it back." He puts up the little graphic here and then puts "Run it back" at the bottom. Derrick Henry, I know he's hungry for a Super Bowl. He's obviously going to be 31 heading into next season, but we know if there's a guy that will be mentally and physically prepared, who has really slowed off the aging effects of a running back with his absurd workout and body routine and maintenance, it's Derrick Henry. And the way he was running in the playoffs, I expect him to be running just like that again heading into the 2025 season. And I think the Ravens will have a real shot again, as they always do, of making a run at a Super Bowl championship. But at number 3, I also think a big part of that's going to be the defense getting off to a hotter start. We know the defense in the first half of the season was trash, 2024, and then it went from literally trash to one of the best defenses in football. They were number 1 in many categories over the last 8 to 11 weeks of the season, where they just completely turned it around. So Zach Orr's coming back as the defensive coordinator with more experience, second year. If you guys remember, Mike Macdonald in his first year, the defense got shredded a good amount of times. I can remember that Dolphins game where they gave up like 500 passing yards in the first year of Mike Macdonald's defense, but he got better in the second half of the season, same way that Zachary Orr did. Now, Zach Orr going to his second year, I think he's going to be much more prepared, ready to go, having some experience and some confidence under his belt, especially with some solid playoff performances where he was calling good plays in the Steelers games and the Bills game, where the Ravens were able to get a ton of stops and give their offense a chance to win those games. But a big part of that defense is Nate Wiggins heading into year 2. Now, check this stat out. Only 3 cornerbacks in the NFL last season held opponents under a 50% completion percentage when targeted. Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley Jr., and Nate Wiggins. Nate Wiggins was one of 3 cornerbacks that held, opposing passers under 50% completion per target, man. That's really good stuff. Nate Wiggins, I think, is only going to get better. Eric DeCosta said in his interview that, he was good. He had a good season, but if he wants to be great, the ball's in his court, putting on a little bit more weight and continuing to get better. Nate Wiggins, Marlon Humphrey, both under contract next season. Kyle Hamilton, Ardarius Washington, also under contract. Roquan Smith under contract. Matabike, Travis Jones, Kyle Van Noy, Owe, all locked up for the 2025 season. The big core of their defense coming back, but I think the Ravens are going to add another playmaker, whether it's another safety, a playmaking safety to put next to Ardarius Washington, so that way Kyle Hamilton can come down and play the nickel more, or whether it's another corner because Brandon Stevens is a free agent, whether it's a difference-making pass rusher, defensive tackle, or edge rusher. The Ravens, I think, are going to add some more splash playmakers on their defense to give them a little bit more juice. At number 4, speaking of adding guys, it will have to be more than likely through the draft because the Ravens don't have a lot of salary cap. That's all right. The Ravens are a team that hits home runs in the draft every single year, man. I was looking back at some of these draft classes. The year in 2021, we got Tyler Linderbaum, Travis Jones, and Kyle Hamilton, and Isaiah Likely all in the same draft. There were some other guys in there. I can look back to the 2018 draft where we got 2 All-Pros, Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson in the same draft. This last year, we got Nate Wiggins, and then a future Pro Bowl starting type of tackle in Roger Rosengarten, man. The Ravens add difference makers every single year in the draft. And I think with 11 selections, 11 picks the Ravens have in this year's draft, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to add talent. And I think the Ravens are going to hit some home runs with 11 picks. But speaking of the cap and the salary cap, like we said, the Ravens got to do it in the draft. The Ravens have $5.955 million in salary cap space after they just signed 11 players from the practice squad last week. They now have 53 players under contract for 2025. So if you're looking at major holes needing to fill a lot of starting spots, it's really not a true issue for the Ravens. There's a couple of holes. You got to do something with left tackle, Ronnie Stanley. Do you bring him back or do you swing over Roger Rosengarten to left tackle, which he's played in the past, and then draft another right tackle? You got to figure out the tackle situation. You got to figure out a starting corner opposite of Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins, who's the nickel, who's an outside guy. But the cupboard's not bare there. You have options. You have guys you recently drafted like TJ Tampa. We know Jalen Armour-Davis is still also with the team, and Arthur Millette will be coming back, healthy after dealing with a ton of injuries. So keep your eye out on that. But not a lot of holes on the Ravens roster. And they also have some moves they can make, including releasing Marcus Williams to free up some salary cap space. But 53 players already under contract for 25 is a pretty good start. Brent Urban, defensive lineman, depth guy / rotational guy who is just a solid football player, plays like a Raven, good leader, high energy guy. He'll be back for another year. He announced that, hey, I got another year in me. And then also Anthony Miller, who actually made a couple of grabs in the playoffs, and was kind of signed late in the process. He was signed to a future / reserve deal. But I think this season is going to be more about improving rather than replenishing. If you guys can remember last year, we had to replenish a lot of starting offensive linemen. We had to replenish Patrick Queen, Geno Stone. A lot of guys had left in free agency, right? We replenished a lot. This year, we don't have to replenish a lot. I think we can actually focus on improving. I think that's adding another splash-making defensive player. Specifically, I hope it's a pass rusher, whether it's draft and or free agency. But, your running back room is intact. Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, Derrick Henry, all under contract. Your tight end room, all 3 of those guys are under contract. Charlie Kohler, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, and then your wide receivers, Bateman, Flowers under contract. Plus you got Devontae Walker, who, going into his second year, looking to improve. So the cupboard's not really bare at any position on the team. The Ravens are in a great spot moving forward. Eric DeCosta did a great job setting them up for success for this season, but also for seasons to come. And that's what the Ravens do, man. They're a competitor every single year. So if you got any value out of today's content, man, make sure to smash the like button. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.
Ray, when he wasn't looking, he ran me over.